So, in lieu of the recent admissions scandal, I think it's important that we address quite possibly one of the most blatant abuses of, I don't know what to call it, proximity with Mr. Wesley Crusher. Because, I mean, I always assumed that there was something going on between Jean-Luc and Beverly, but let's just assume there's not. And it really is that, I mean, did he get some strings pulled? Or is he truly, like, uniquely deserving? Or is he beyond even, the day-to-day?
Well, the Federation stopped him using money by then, so maybe Beverly was pulling some other kinds of strings.
Picard's heartstrings.
Yeah, because at that point, the Ferengi were the only ones really using the gold pressed latinum. And I think the Federation kept it on hand, but they always made fun of money. I mean, they started from episode 1 making fun of money when Q was on there.
Yeah.
How it was archaic and...
Yeah, during the trial.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because I feel like it came up with somebody else too, besides Quark. Who else?
I mean, I feel like Jake Sisko was not the benefit of... He did not receive the benefit of, placement.
Oh, no.
He said he got stuck out on Deep Space Nine. And that's not a bad thing, because that was actually a very interesting story. But, that story ends with him standing out on an observation area, like, waiting for his dad to reappear, because, his dad is no longer linked to the timeline. He's a multi-dimensional being.
Yeah, and like Keiko was the ship's teacher, right?
Yeah.
So it's not... Well, I guess
she's cool.
She was a doctor, I thought, like
she's a scientist.
A biologist.
Yeah. She's a legit scientist.
Yeah.
She went to Bajor.
It wasn't like a bad professor to have.
No. But
just one.
Just one.
Yeah.
Maybe, and it's advanced tutoring from everyone else, of course, whenever available, but that's...
He spent most of his time causing trouble, though.
Yeah.
And that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, he and Rom ended up becoming a fucking starship captain, so...
So comparing Jake Sisko to Wesley Crusher...
Yeah, Jake Sisko is like a revolutionary and a rebel and a journalist and a counterintelligence
Did we ever find out
operative.
Who his dad was?
Who?
Wesley's.
Oh, I mean, I think that at some point in the storyline they introduce his father in some kind of hologram.
Oh, that's right, because he had died.
Yeah.
That's right.
But he's not around.
Yeah. I didn't know if Wesley's dad hopped on a shuttle to go get some cigarettes and never came back briefly.
Lottery tickets. Space lottery tickets.
Can just use the replicator, Dad.
No, it's not the same. You gotta get them at the source.
Gotta go to Bajor.
We gotta go to Ryza.
Oh, man. Wesley was one of those things where I think when you were saying they brought him on to appeal to kids, I think that was kind of more the angle, because they did start doing those more kid-oriented episodes that weren't even about Wesley. But I also, I feel like Star Trek was always sort of aimed at a teenage audience in the first place. Well, not necessarily aimed, but in Next Generation, it was obviously meant to like connect the old people who love Star Trek and were going to all the cons and stuff still.
Yeah. I think that it's I think TNG made a very good effort at maintaining the level of complexity of interspecies relations.
Mm-hmm.
And
but it's still super campy.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch like season 1, it's very camp, and I've forgotten how much season 1 was camp.
Oh, it's
and then it's like really bad. I mean, not bad, but you know, Star Trek's always kind of campy when it's not taking itself too seriously.
I think that's kind of what was good about it, is that it was still kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
There was still a kind of a misogynist commander who was always trying to bed down the alien chick, the hot alien chick, and Riker delivered that aspect of Kirk, and so then we could separate that part of Kirk from the part that is actually a brilliant leader, and so that's how we get Picard, because he's not out there trying to bed down the green Gemini chick.
Yeah. Well, Riker was, but that's where even in Picard's holodeck adventures, he was always trying to solve mysteries and problems and shit, and it wasn't actually, he would have a female interest, but he would just kind of ignore her.
There was always it was always a distraction. He was like, just get out of my way so I can finish this puzzle.
Pretty much.
Oh.
Yeah, because then there was that planet coming back to Wesley Crusher, where Wesley fucked up and was trying to show them how to play football or some shit. And he broke a rule and they were gonna kill him. So that's where it is, you know. I think in other cases we can say, yeah, Wesley had some privilege that other kids might not have necessarily gotten.
Yeah, they were gonna kill him.
Yeah, they were put off Wesley.
He was allowed to operate the Enterprise.
Yeah.
He could pilot the Enterprise as a kid.
Yeah.
He got to manipulate the warp core as a child. He got to use the freaking dish, the array thing, to conduct his science experiments. What the? There were people who had spent their entire lives in Starfleet, with Starfleet, conducting research so that they could get aboard some program on the Enterprise to conduct research. They spent their entire lives doing that stuff, and here's this little kid who just walks in with the doctor.
Well, and I think what ended up happening was with that, with what you're saying.
I love it. I always thought it was great. I loved his character.
No.
Like, shut up, Wesley.
I think so many people took that perspective that they ended up killing the storyline that they were originally going to take him, because the Traveler was the guy who was like shifting phases or whatever.
Yeah.
And they brought it back later.
Yeah, so and then they allowed him to go on and leave the show.
Yeah, but
and he saved the recolonized Native Americans on some other planet, and then they left too. I think
this is the Maquis.
I think the Maquis are involved. It's like a new colony of Native American people. Yeah, I think the Cardassians are involved, and man, Wesley's story was complex.
And I think they would have made it more complex to set it up and finish it out, but because the fans did not respond well to having a kid just waltz onto the show and be able to, do that shit, they kind of wrote him off and on.
When that show was originally being broadcast, and I was watching it, like I always thought Wesley's part of the show was the best, because he's a kid. That's why he's there. As an adult, when I rewatched The Next Generation, like, I enjoy it more when Picard gets annoyed by, here's this little brat, like, giving him suggestions. Like, well, if you scan
Shut up, Wesley.
It's so good. That's why I think it's not that big of a leap that he might be Jean-Luc Jr. No, man. Like, what was it? It was Insurrection. Was it Insurrection when they're flying around and Picard's like, oh, Mr. LaForge, you should check the fucking warp core, the warp field. I think it's out of alignment. And he's like, you're right. How did you know? He's like, when I was an ensign, I could feel a misalignment of .03, blah 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 blah. And it's like, huh. And it's like it's him being like, I'm a badass.
Yeah.
Well, apparently Wesley could manipulate the warp core too. Like,
huh. That's not.
And if Cisco is like somehow like a extra dimensional being, maybe all humans are capable of that, and Picard was just never fully realized because he didn't have the benefit of some psychotic.
Well, Cisco he
had help.
He became that through the wormhole beings, right?
He had
like,
guidance.
Gave them that, or
like
ascended to it.
His mom was from the wormhole, and so he had like a direct path. But he's also human still.
Mm-hmm.
Deep Space Nine was an incredible story.
Well, now that they're bringing back Picard's new series, I wonder where they're going to go with it. Like, they may go in some crazy shit where...
Well, what I read is that they're picking up right after... so, at the beginning of Star Trek, before... let's see... Before Star Trek Kelvin starts, Spock is trying to save Romulus because the sun is going nova and they're trying to inject the red matter and prevent the reaction, but he's too late. And then he gets chased back in time, and then Star Trek Kelvin timeline begins. And apparently, so Spock is gone, Romulus is destroyed, and they're trying to fix things, get like help the survivors. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's before all that happens. Maybe it hasn't happened yet.
I mean, it makes sense though.
But I'm pretty sure that that's where it begins, because that's the last thing that we know about the primary storyline, is that Romulus is dying and their sun is going to go nova, and they're probably running out of options. And considering Picard was like the Federation's chief negotiator, diplomat, like pretty much the head diplomat, it makes sense that even after retiring from commanding a starship, that he would still be tapped to go and work out really complex. God, it's hard to entire species-wide concerns, and help to come up with the logistical solutions to manage a planet worth of people.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's such a... It's like we've talked about like what it would take to send people into the stars, and we can't go in there to colonize. We've got to be able to be somehow self-sufficient. And I always think it's interesting because Star Trek seems to be somewhat self-sufficient, because they've got like antimatter conversion and faster than light travel and matter replication, and they managed to do away with the need to harvest from someplace, except for the dilithium.
Or was it deuterium?
For the ship's metal.
Yeah, because in Voyager they have to like find it. And then, but in most of the other ones, you never see them like refueling. And that's kind of where, they've mastered replicating matter
up to a point.
But then the shit goes offline every so often. So then you have to, like in Voyager, they have to grow their own food and shit like that. So.
Well, yeah, that's Star Trek when you don't have any resources and you're out in the middle of nowhere trying to get home, versus Star Trek where it's like you have substations everywhere where you can go get fueled and resupplied and fix your ride, because you don't want to be in space with a broken spaceship.
Yeah.
That's like the scariest idea. It's like, let's go into deep space with a ship that's gonna break.
Yeah, your replicators stop working at full capacity, and you have to use them half the time or something.
Or it's like the computer tells you that your replicators are going to fail within some determined amount of time, and so now's the time to replicate everything you need to sustain a hydroponic or aeroponic growth operation and enough seeds to start so that if the first batch fails that you can keep going.
Doomsday replicating.
Yeah, you gotta prep a replicator.
Prep a replicator. Preplicator.
It only replicates the things that you need to engage in doomsday prepper activities.
Oh man. Somehow the replicator's not enough.
Yeah. Well, its batteries will run out. It'll run out of paste.
Yeah. Ink. Quote unquote.
The protein carbohydrate solution. It's a binary solution.
Everything is basically like a mozzarella stick.
Yeah, in its raw form.
I've been digging this fake chicken lately.
Yeah.
And the fake ground beef, for that matter. The fake sausage is okay. It's not terrible. It doesn't taste like real sausage, but it's good enough. I prefer the fake link sausage, but the patties are okay. The veggie stuff's a lot better now than they used to be. It's just easier to not have to eat meat every single day when you can eat the fake ground beef and have it be effectively the same shit and not feel bad about it. That's kind of where I'm like, I still go to Penn Station every so often, but the fake stuff's getting pretty good. I just want the replicators to come so we can be like, I want a lamb shank, and then the replicator does it like that, and it's perfect.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to the control software that allows you to dial in.
Yeah. Because that's the real chef shit right there.
That's the key. It's like I wanted an uneven distribution of 15 micron ground, certain herbs and spices blend.
Yeah. Should be able to dial in the gaminess.
Yeah, stuff like that.
This one should simulate that it ran through a meadow every third Thursday, but all the other days it ate thyme or something. It's like dial in very specific things for the meat.
Oh man, I would create like I would have a ham sandwich made out of ham, where the pig only ate like lobster and had vats of butter to drink up, and
garlic butter,
yeah, like pre-seasoned lobster.
Yeah,
basically,
exactly.
And then and also it would be allowed to like roll around in honey whenever it wanted to. That would be like
yeah, I mean, if you can, they've engineered graples. Why can't you engineer a fucking meat that tastes like it was eating another meat its entire life without actually killing anything?
Yeah.
I want to eat duck that's eating fucking bacon, yeah, that would be amazing. Duck that's eating bacon its entire life, and not just like low sodium bacon. I want the fucking full fat,
full sodium bacon.
Full sodium bacon, because the duck didn't give a shit.
Yeah, the duck didn't care.
Yeah, he was like eating honey, maple honey bacon.
Mm-hmm. In a guilt-free forest too.
Guilt-free forest.
Yeah. Where like the trees were just allowed to like run tap free, right? We're talking about fantasy food at this point, so it might as well.
I mean, but it doesn't have to be. It's just a matter of
dialing in the
getting the proper desire out there. I think
Yeah.
part of the issue is people demonize this type of approach to food. I think it's fucking awesome if you can have meat that's guilt-free, because I love meat. I love the fucking flavor. I love how it tastes. I love the texture.
And the way it smells when it sears.
I love, all that shit. And I'd be a liar if
really
I didn't.
incredible sauce when you mix it with vegetables and other oils and spices.
Rice without meat is not the same as rice with meat.
Yeah.
It's just not the same.
No.
Fucking bread without meat is just not the same as bread with meat. You know,
there's no amount of butter that
like I like cheese. Cheese on its own is one thing. You add bread, all of a sudden, now we're in a fucking different ballpark. Now you add meat and cheese.
And you toast it?
Now that's something people sell. Like, you know, fucking all different type. Like, people have
add a little cup of soup to the side of that. You can cut it in half and double your profit margins.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not even about the profit so much as meat is a good form of sustenance that's also enjoyable. There's sustenance out there that's good forms of sustenance that's not necessarily enjoyable. Rice is a good form of sustenance. It's not necessarily nutritious, but you can eat off or survive off of rice and feel full pretty much all the time, but it's not gonna be enjoyable to just eat rice all fucking like every meal. Just imagine eating rice. Just imagine eating rice for 1 month for every meal. How much you would
just
hate.
Rice, though?
Just rice.
Oh, God.
Not even buttered rice. We're not even talking butter, because that's a whole different ingredient.
No salt?
No salt.
Oh.
Just rice. Just imagine how much you would hate rice by the end of that fucking month. But if you had a little bit of meat, all those other things wouldn't be that big a deal. Rice with a little bit of meat, fucking...
Actually, rice with just some Worcestershire sauce is...
Just some sauce. I mean...
Just a little bit of sauce.
But for a month.
Drop on it. For a month.
For a month, you could do it. You could do rice with a little bit of meat for a month for a diet and not hate either one.
Oh, it's the sumo diet. You eat rice and, like, salmon or something like that. just rice and salmon.
That'd be lux. If you could eat just rice and salmon every day, people would be like, oh, this is my new...
Turn it to rice and tilapia. Even
Lux salmon diet, the West Coast salmon diet.
The West Coast salmon diet.
But it's really sumo diet, because you can't call it sumo, because people would be like, fucking fat sumo, but really they're super athletic.
Except they're like towers of muscle.
Yeah.
That can like push other towers of muscle out of the way.
But you can't fucking market that. Like, in one word.
Eat this and get strong enough to push another tower of muscle out of the way.
Yeah. Oh man.
I did that one time for like a summer. I decided to like eat rice and like tilapia and cod and just whatever frozen fish Kroger had. I would just buy a bag of it, and then when it ran out, I'd go buy a different bag of fish. And it worked out for a while until I got to the whitefish, and it was just too fishy. I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure out how to prepare it, and so I gave up on it. The next thing I knew, I bought a bag of hamburgers and I ate those. But for a while, I tried. You know, I tried like rice, vegetable, piece of fish. Really straightforward, real simple. Not too fancy, nothing too fancy. Some garlic, maybe some ginger, and it worked. It worked for a while.
Good food doesn't need a lot of complexity.
And I was really happy with this right up until I got to that one type of fish that I couldn't figure out how to cook and I didn't want to eat. And it was like, nah, I'm gonna get a hamburger now. There goes that little experiment. I should have just got another bag of like cod or something. Cod's really cool. Cod you can cook all sorts of different ways. You can bread it. You don't have to bread it. Cook it in a soup.
It's not super fishy.
Nope.
It's fishy enough.
Yeah. You can put it in some coconut milk and add some
coconut milk. I feel like they can go in anything, man. I love coconut milk.
Well, I feel like seafood, like fish, and then coconut milk is like a recipe for some kind of like Thai food.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like here we
anything coconut is like, is that Thai? Yeah.
Speaking of that, I read something about Isan Thai thought they might be going out of business, which makes me sad because Bloomington has always suffered not enough Thai restaurants. Like we'll get a couple, like I think there's I can't remember.
Well, it's a bet. Just better not go out of business ever.
No, I actually really enjoy the kind of food diversity that Bloomington has. I think that there's always been like a really positive, diversity of cuisine. We're really lucky. I've been to college towns that don't have that kind of diversity of restaurants, and
yeah, 4th Street's pretty amazing.
God, 4th Street belongs in like a big city.
People are like, why do you live in Bloomington? I wish I could just be like 4th Street, but they don't understand.
But the proximity of 4th Street to like the downtown section, and then the way it's all laid out, that it's all like right next to it.
You're always close to that shit. You're always super close to it. I mean, as much as I love fucking gyros and doner, I mean, which obviously not fucking much different. It's pretty much the same shit, but the bread is different. I like different breads on that shit, and sometimes I feel like a pita, sometimes. And that's another thing you'll find here is they do fucking lamb quesadillas downtown ever so often. That's some shit you can't find that shit anywhere.
Nope.
But it's like I can go find a lamb quesadilla, or I can go find a torta, because I like tortas. I like fucking Mexican sandwiches. But that's where sometimes, it's crazy how I try to react to my gut and go with my gut, and sometimes my gut wants a fucking tortilla, sometimes it wants flour, sometimes it wants corn, sometimes it wants a hard shell, and that's where I can never know what I'm going to want on that much of a granular level to the next day. So that's why I do like having Bloomington's options of, you can pretty much get anything. You can get a fucking Mexican sandwich. You can't get a Mexican sandwich everywhere. But you can get a really, and somebody's
you can
like,
get a Mexican sandwich and then drive down the street like 4 or 5 blocks and get a greasy fried catfish dinner.
And then the best part about it though, is the Mexican sandwich is gonna be brought out to you by a little Mexican grandma.
Yeah.
And it's not like some fucking Taco Bell bullshit. Like, you can go find these places where it's like, it's a little Mexican ass grandma in the kitchen.
Like Juanita's.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah. That's exactly what I was talking about. I love that place.
Oh man, they've got like that. We went there one time and I asked them for some salsa, and they brought out this like green sauce. I said, do you have anything else? And they brought out this like other sauce. It was like kind of orangish, so I mixed them together, and it was incredible. And I just had to ask, and they brought out like a completely different sauce. I didn't know. If I'd have known that they had this other sauce, I'd have been like, holy crap, we got to go to this place even more, because it was like a weird. It wasn't that it made it hotter. It just was like the pepper just opened it up. Kind of like the same. I feel like it's what people will talk about when they say add some water to your whiskey and it'll open it up a little, or add an ice cube to it, or put it on the rocks. It opens it up. It opens up to the palate, 'cause it's not quite so concentrated. But I feel like it like, maybe because it has some lime in it, it like changed the way my taste buds received the carnitas. And they have good carnitas too. I feel like carnitas, the way that they'll do the slow pork roast is it's like really the most telling way of how they handle the meats.
Yeah. If I could eat Juanita's food every day, I would. But that's just like, I don't think I could ever get sick of that shit. It's just too like, I would probably start gaining weight if I ate it every day. It's too caloric.
The kind of additional activities you'd have to like add to your daily routine.
Yeah.
Well, he might get in good shape, and that's a lot of potential energy stored in one of those tacos.
Yeah, it would be an excuse if I said, "Oh, if I hit this many miles or."
No, I think the only kind of cuisine I could eat like day in day out would be Chinese food.
Mm-hmm.
Because almost all Chinese dishes are really about vegetables, like traditional Chinese food. It's mostly about the vegetables, and they leave a lot of bones in, and I think that helps with forcing you to slow down and eat more discreetly, because you can't just take a bite of something that's gonna stab you.
That's true.
I used to think that all cuisine was built around this idea. It's like, oh yeah, you can eat everything on the plate except for Chinese food and certain types of barbecue.
Well, I got introduced to the idea of the variety of color through Asian cuisine, and I've always been able to. I've been trying to do that since I was younger, in the sense of when you look at your food and it's like, what colors are popping out. Sometimes you go with the brown, when you're in those fatty moods and you need the mozzarella sticks and
the brown and the
deep
orange
fried
foods.
Snickers and deep fried Oreos. Sometimes that shit is coming from your soul, man, and sometimes people go against it and then it ends up making them go into it even more. But I try to go with it when
It's the reason that chicken and waffles is actually
absolutely. I
really
fucking love
good.
chicken and waffles.
And people will laugh about it until they actually sit down and try it, and then it's like, why didn't anybody tell me that you could have chicken and waffles at the same time?
Oh, but dude, that's the type of shit where, when I was a kid, I remember putting grape jelly on a turkey sandwich. And that shit was fucking amazing to me. And then people would be like, what are you doing? And then only years later, I found out there's a sandwich called the Monte Cristo. Of course. That is turkey and grape jelly, in fact. And that's where, I was doing that shit as a kid because my palate was like, these two things would be amazing together, and I loved it. And I'd try stuff and it would be disgusting and I would never do it again. But I was always trying to find different textures and flavor combinations, even as a kid. And I was always about salt and sweet together, and then I found there's a lot of that in Asian dishes, and I was like, oh, this is fucking amazing, between Chinese and Japanese. And then I found Vietnamese and then banh mi sandwiches, oh my god, because there's not a ton of, as far as I have experienced, there's not a ton of Chinese sandwiches that I have seen. So
Chinese sandwiches are like buns, where you get a piece of bread that as it steams and cooks itself, it also cooks this little wad of meat on the inside.
I wouldn't consider that a sandwich.
Or
it's almost like a dumpling.
Yeah, well, that's a dumpling, or
it's almost a dumpling style approach.
A pot sticker is essentially a sandwich. A spring roll would be a sandwich. Egg roll would be a sandwich.
That's what I kind of thought.
That's the closest. I feel like those are the closest cultural equivalents to the sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
And any of the street foods that aren't a meat on a stick, that are probably breaded or wrapped up in something that's edible. Like if it's wrapped up in some kind of rice thing, or encased in rice, I feel like that is almost a sandwich. Not really, but rice cake kind of.
There's a lot of debate on what constitutes a sandwich.
What constitutes
really
bread?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole is cereal soup.
Right. Is cereal just cold soup? Is there cold soups? Is minestrone just cereal with vegetables then?
I think ramen is essentially a hot salty cereal. Because it's wheat. It's a wheat noodle.
Oh man, we should title this one "Ramen is Hot Salty Cereal."
Ramen is hot salty cereal.
It's gonna make a lot of people mad. Do not add milk to ramen. Maybe you should actually. Maybe it'll be delicious. Cream of ramen.
I have spent many years seeking out different types of ramen. I've bought every kind of ramen imaginable, like Indonesian ramen, Malaysian ramen, Vietnamese ramen, Thai ramen, Chinese ramen, Korean ramen, Japanese ramen, ramen made in California, ramen made in New York, like all that stuff. Like, and the unifying feature is that it's all made out of wheat, and it's it's just soup. Cereal is soup. Soup is cereal. I mean, I'm sure that there are like some really distinct chemical level changes that happen.
Technically, soup is supposed to have broth.
Okay,
that's the one quality.
How do we define a broth then?
It's something that is whittled down through a grinder and then put into concentrate. So technically.
So what about the particles that form in a bag of cereal as the cereal grinds up against itself, and then that stuff ends up in the. Wouldn't there be some kind of thermal reaction that occurs as the milk mixes with that powdered material? Because there's going to be a reaction, even if there's just like some kind of carbon reaction.
Absolutely. I mean, have you never done the magnet with the iron on the cereal?
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of where.
Fortified with.
Right. I mean,
Special K. That shit that stuff's insane. How much metal they put in that stuff.
So that's where there is, on a certain level, once you add the HCl, there's going to be, it's the same reaction basically. So, it depends on I mean. It's soup once it hits the belly, but okay. Soup it's cereal.
Everything
on
becomes
the table, soup in the belly.
Everything becomes soup in the belly, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a stew, maybe, if you don't.
But
well, what about what's it called? Cioppino. The South American cold tomato soup. That's not cooked.
Yeah, there's tons of cold soups.
That broth forms because of an acid reaction, right?
I mean, well,
just get tomatoes and limes and onions and cilantro. I mean, that's an acid reaction.
Yeah, totally.
So, why couldn't milk? That'd just be like some kind of base reaction. Could a base reaction result in a broth? Base broth. Ooh. Yeah. No. Okay. So really, the reason I think of ramen as cereal is because for a significant portion of my life, when I was going to high school, ramen was very easy to eat in the morning. You just heat up some water and poof, ramen. There you go. And it was pretty much like cereal.
Well, I mean, technically oatmeal cereal.
Is?
I'm pretty sure.
Huh. But you have to cook that to eat it, right?
Right, yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's why shit gets weird.
And because grits, you gotta heat that up too. You have to cook grits because those things are hard. You can't just chew on them. Same with like malto meal.
You wouldn't call grits soup, right?
No, grits are definitely cereal.
Yeah.
Grits and hominy, yeah.
Because then what's cream of wheat? It's definitely not a soup.
Totally a cereal.
It's totally a cereal. Yeah, so that's kind of where it is. Once you get into warm cereals.
So does that make like spaghetti, noodles, and marinara a stew with noodles? Like a really chunky marinara?
I think so.
Holy crap. Chunky marinara with noodles is that's like Skyline chili then.
Well, but that's kind of where the argument about chili comes in, because a lot of people, like, I ate chili with noodles most of my entire life until I met white people.
Chili to me is the same thing as curry. It's just North America's version of curry. Complex blend of spices, cooked for several hours. May or may be vegetarian.
Yeah,
it's just curry.
Basically.
It's complex.
Yeah, because when you say that, a lot of the curry, like, we have a Moroccan chili dish that we cook that's it's vegetarian. There's no noodles in it, but the curry dishes that we also cook are not far from it.
Yeah.
It's kind of...
To me, the curry chili connection is so strong. They're just like cousins.
Mm-hmm.
They might actually be siblings. They might have the same dad. That dad who loves to go get smokes in a lottery ticket.
Started hanging out with garlic.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, is a taco a sandwich? Tacos are sandwiches, right?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Isn't it like an semi-open sandwich?
I mean, a torta is a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, because then that's like the only reason a hot dog is technically a sandwich because it's 2 pieces of bread and a bun.
Is a stromboli a taco? I mean, that's just like a pizza that's folded in half.
That would be closer to a quesadilla, I think. Right.
Okay, so is a pizza a quesadilla? A stromboli.
A pizza is an unfolded quesadilla.
And so a stromboli is a quesadilla.
And a lamajin is basically a Turkish pizza. And then, yeah, a pizza is basically an unfolded quesadilla.
And a paella is a pizza that doesn't have bread.
Oh man. So a calzone is just an Italian quesadilla. Basically.
That's awesome. if this erupts in some kind of food war, you've been asking for this.
Oh man, I don't know where the pita comes in.
Oh man,
Turkish.
Like gyro is a taco, or is a taco a gyro?
Oh man.
Oh no. I mean, if you throw shawarma in the mix, then it just becomes all no. There are no rules.
Yeah, because I've seen shawarma with pita and bread.
Yeah.
Or fucking like bun bread.
Yeah. Flatbread and roll.
Yeah.
But sandwich is such a. I mean, we named it after, we call it the sandwich because the Earl of Sandwich, but surely something predates, you know.
Pretty sure the Chinese invented the sandwich, I thought.
A wad of meat between some buns.
Yeah, I thought the Chinese invented it. Or maybe I'm thinking of the pizza.
Well,
I'm sure they invented everything. Fuck it.
I mean, the origins of the pizza, the what we call the pizza today, we give to the Italians for when Margarita, like the Queen of Spain, showed up to visit, and they made her a margarita. They named it after her. But there are also all sorts of like cooked or like
flatbreads go back to the Egyptians,
yeah,
for sure, yeah. Like they were definitely doing flatbreads. Like,
and tomatoes come from South America.
Yeah.
Although the Chinese had their own version of ketchup, like way before Heinz ever existed. So how they got tomatoes? Chinese had their own trade routes to South America.
Yeah. Wouldn't doubt it.
Tomatoes come from South America, and weed comes from India, And
Huh. Can they not grow? I wonder if they can grow tomatoes in China today.
I'm sure they do.
Like,
I bet they grow everything
in the wild.
there. I'm pretty sure the only reason they buy like all of our soybeans is because we're willing to use our land to grow soybeans for them. I think if China if they needed to, they could use their land. They have the manpower. They definitely have the manpower. They definitely have the organizational infrastructure to remobilize. Have you seen that movie, The Wandering Earth?
Mm-mm.
It's about a version of humanity that's presented with a dying sun that's going to expand and within the next 100 years render the Earth uninhabitable. And so they decide to initiate the Wandering Earth project and leave the solar system. So they build a bunch of engines to push the Earth out of orbit. They're going to slingshot around Jupiter and leave and head towards Proxima Centauri. And a few things go wrong. There's a minor, major, end of humanity level emergency on the way out. And, they make it, and they're on their way to Proxima Centauri. And this movie is this huge pitch for socialism. It's like the only way we can succeed is if we work together, kind of thing. And it's they kind of paint the computer as I don't really feel like I saw America represented in any of the characters, except for the malicious AI, the homicidal AI aboard the space station that was willing to kill the Russian cosmonaut and tried to kill the Chinese cosmonaut who were trying to stop it from sacrificing the Earth. Like,
that's funny.
So it's this.
Was it Canadian science fiction?
No, it's like the biggest Chinese science fiction movie of all time. It had like the biggest box office opening weekend in history. It's like, actually it looks incredible. It has sci-fi CGI rendering on par with anything that Disney has made.
How old is this?
It just got released.
Oh yeah.
Netflix is bought the distribution rights.
Gotcha.
So it'll appear with translations into dubbed translations, or dubbed versions will appear, so you won't have to read, whatever the Hong Kong Cinema Bureau or Chinese Cinema Bureau. I think it's actually a Chinese mainland movie, but whatever they decide to make the subtitles read as, because there's this element to it where I feel like there's they're really pushing this whole we move together type of thing within the story. They're really pushing like a unified human front for the best of, we're looking out for the best interests of humanity type of outlook. And it's kind of interesting because we need that kind of crap more than ever right now, it seems. And so it's like that meme that I shared, where it's like China is now like doubled their solar panel manufacturing output, and now they're like leaders in solar panel manufacturing and installation. And it's like one of my buddies points out, he's like hey, don't congratulate them too much. And as you pointed out, it's like it's not even about that. It's that we're engaged in imperialist activities on our own people. Oh, and by the way, China is also doing this really good thing that's going to help everyone. Bizarro world. Keeps coming back. Like that, there are all these things where I feel like, no, America is supposed to be doing this. We're the ones that developed the fucking space programs that have bled down to this point where China can attempt to grow cotton on the moon.
But in the process, we compromised
someone compromised the infrastructure.
This country was always white supremacist, and we just are now acknowledging it and waking up to it. Because why is it that Nazism is it's protected here, but it's illegal in Germany.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like it's no accident when we took on Werner von Braun for our space program, we took on the fucking Nazis. They subverted our government, and it's been like, you know, the KKK started here. It didn't start in fucking Germany.
Yeah.
So the shit that we pushed from the KKK, we pushed in a lot of ways to them, and then we brought it right back. And it's just a matter of now people have to realize that there's in this, if we want to make it so people can understand, in the same way that Hydra fucking subverted SHIELD in the movies, that shit has happened in our fucking real life, where the Nazis have subverted the United States government, and people will get in thinking they're supporting patriotism and the United States, and it's really just the Nazi agenda. And there's a ton of people that know that, and they don't care that it's the Nazi agenda because they're fucking white supremacists. And that's where we're at in this country, and people want to play like it's like a game, but it's really like we're fighting Nazis at this point. You have
not just fighting Nazis, but fighting Nazis on domestic soil
that are hidden. They're hidden Nazis, and that's the worst part about it, is they've been able to put themselves in positions of power and authority, and you don't know who they are because now they don't have they're not wearing their fucking swastikas, and that's like the worst part about it. This is like been the best part about all these racist people actually coming back, is because we, as a black person, we have been telling these people, like everybody else, like these racist ass people have been here for fucking 60 years and longer, and nobody wanted to hear it because like, there's no Nazis here. That's in your mind. There's no Klans people here. That's stuff of the past. Racism's dead. Obama. And then it's like,
I don't see color.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a convenient period where people could use, and that was the worst part about Obama's presidency, is you have a president who perpetuates the growth of this underground white supremacy group and then doesn't do anything to dismantle it in the law enforcement agencies.
Oh, I was reading about so Obama's administration created some $10 million worth of funding to be used for the research into hate groups and prevention of the formation of hate groups. The current administration has rescinded this money. They've taken it away. But I feel like $10 million, that's $200,000 per state, right?
Yeah.
$200,000 per state is only like 2 people after you establish all of your administrative fees and facilities and the operational requirements for a facility to just maintain the office and their office infrastructure and all of that stuff, electricity, internet, government vehicles.
So on paper it sounds good at first,
but $200,000 doesn't distribute to very much once you start to form an entity. So it's really, we're talking about $200,000. That's like one room, two rooms, one office and one storage area in a big ass government building with all these other agencies. And so basically one floor could handle the entirety of the country.
And then underpaid.
And they're all underpaid because most of the money that's reserved per state is actually being allocated for facilities.
There you go.
So maybe you got 2 people monitoring an entire state, and they can't do anything close to what like a Southern Poverty Law Center can accomplish. They're like crippled compared to the Southern Poverty Law Center.
No, so it's all,
So maybe taking away $10 million to close down that operation isn't really bad. Maybe
no, I mean it's not bad in the sense that the problem is that
that's the
people who were gonna do the fucking searches are racist too.
Yeah.
and that's the problem is you can't dismantle institutional racism until you dismantle the racists in the law enforcement agencies.
Yeah.
And that's the big problem. And that's like when we had a black president who completely acted like there was no problem. That was the chance. And now it's as worse as it could possibly get without being them openly Nazis. But they might as well be openly Nazis at this point. And that's where people have lost sight of what the Nazis were actually doing
we're at the end stage of the white supremacy pyramid.
Yeah.
We're at the violence phase, where it's like normalized and people aren't even they're not even paralyzed. They're just not even doing anything because they're so just exhausted, it seems.
Yep, we've seen this before.
And so it's about to begin, right? With the next phase, right? That's what's going to happen.
I mean,
if we follow the roadmap laid out by history.
That's the part. Well, again, I guess I just don't know if America deserves not to go down that path because they don't seem to care enough to do anything about it.
You know, Germany became a pretty incredibly successful place after World War II, and after the dust settled of the Cold War, which also never ended. Like, and they took down that wall. Germany became a very, very organized and profitable place. They've got a very strong economy. They have the strongest economy in Europe, right? Something like that, or they did for a while.
Yeah, until Europe started falling apart.
Yeah, but how many times did they have to bail out? Siemens can only build so many submarines on the budget of the Greeks before like they've got too many submarines to even like store and have out. And I think when everyone's driving like a Volkswagen or a BMW or a Mercedes or an Audi or a Porsche and any of the other like German brands that are probably very accessible. I bet those brands are almost affordable to own in Germany because of the availability of parts. Like when you have cars like that, I think that it's a very different world.
I mean, a lot of the taxis are like Mercedes.
Yeah, and I know gas costs more, and people drive differently, but man, they've just got. It seems like that's a society that's got a lot of things resolved pretty well. Like they've got like.
It's also like 40 million people. I don't even know if it's that many.
It's true.
25.
Yeah, but there's also a period of time, up to a few years ago, I think, where Germany was producing almost all of the. They're producing the same amount of electricity. They're producing like 30% of the electricity with the landmass of Washington and Oregon. That's like nothing. They were producing a lot. They were producing almost the same amount of solar energy as like some of those solar plants in the deserts where they have nearly unlimited sunlight and no clouds.
Yeah. But that's when your country has restrictions placed on it by external forces on how much you can spend on military, then you can put all your shit in science.
God, it'd be great if we could put all of our military budget into the sciences.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, we need you to conduct experiments. Some of you might not come back.
Yeah. It's so weird how you can't convince people to stop investing in weapons just for like a little bit. Just for like 5 years. It doesn't have to be forever. Like, I could concede, you don't have to stop investing in weapons forever. Just 5 years, guys. The amount of... If we didn't invest in weapons for 5 years and took all that budget and invested it in infrastructure, we would have a fucking Dyson sphere in 5 years.
Well, we'd at least have Moonbase Alpha and Moonbase Beta and Moonbase Delta.
Yeah.
And Moonbase Theta. We'd also have a Gamma site where we would be conducting some really serious shit.
I mean, we'd have that in year one, I would assume. Fuck, man, That
No, I think year one would still be the marketing phase where we had to convince everyone that this was, you know, that this, not just convince, to let them know that it's happening. Year 2 and 3 would be the deployment phase, and by 4 and 5 we would have full integration with civilian populations. 5-year plan for full colonization of the moon is done, right there.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
I don't think that. I think that. I think that all it really demands actually is Bezos comes correct and develops the fucking lunar Amazon HQ like on time, and and then all of those tax dollars that he has been paying and hoarding away can be put to something useful like building a moon base. Because if anyone's going to build a large enough landing site facility to handle that kind of traffic in and out every day, fucking Amazon.
Oh man. They just start shipping from the moon from a gigantic cannon.
Hold on, we missed our window. We're going to have to wait 14 hours.
Yeah.
Rail going to be awesome though. It shoots it and it wraps it around the moon so that it flings off.
Yeah.
There'd be like 5 or 6 different paths that it could launch on, so it would go to different parts of the planet.
They should just build a lateral city that's a ring around the moon. That's one big fucking monorail / hyperloop. So all of the shit exists on the loop. Build the first one at the top and not around the middle, so you don't have to build the fucking biggest diameter. Don't start with the biggest diameter, guys.
I'd like to see an orbital launch platform, like a Mars launcher, that starts like at the point on the moon closest to the Earth, and it's actually at the end of a really long like rope, and so it fires its engine and basically uncoils itself and then releases at a certain point. And then we retract that, we recoil the the launch cable. The launch cable supplies the fuel. Or electricity or whatever to drive the magnet or whatever.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way to find, like, to derive some giant magnet-based moon launcher.
Oh yeah, I mean, make a railgun type launch for a ship. So you just turn the shuttle into a rail, like a railgun.
Or if we could ionize the moon in opposition to the Earth's ionic charge, so that we could create a big ass magnet between the two and just use that to launch things.
Mm-hmm.
So we would just like power up the ion engine nacelles to have whatever charge to go in a certain direction, and then release the electromagnetic pulse, and then fling it off in a direction. We need inertial dampers.
Yeah, I was looking at the Orville where there's some shit where they make it as if the ship moves and they like shift a little bit, and I'm like, if you shift a little bit, you're gonna splat. So you shouldn't be shifting at all. Like, if the ship's getting hit and it's shaking or whatever, like, the dampeners are gonna take care of that shit too. Like, just have the sparks fucking fly. Because if it's like, if you could feel those things,
that's a really violent motion.
Yeah, that's a really violent motion. And then on top of that, then you're saying that you would be able to feel other impacts or like sudden stops.
Well, maybe if there was some kind of physical impact, there could be some kind of like inertial transfer. But that'd be like a huge impact. That'd have to be a huge impact. I mean, the saucer sections are survivable with planetary impact if they have the right approach. So maybe those things are tougher than in space. Maybe they're tougher than we think they are.
I'm saying it's like the ship would survive the impact, but if the person inside is moving, like, they would be flying.
Yeah, they'd just be like mashed against the wall.
That's where it is. Like I think there's certain things that they do for the viewer, but then if you like sit back and think about it, you're like, this is fucking retarded. Like this would not work at all, guys. Like no. Don't shift a little bit, because you would shift a lot.
So there's a picture of the guy who's playing the new Captain Pike, doing his best impersonation of Riker during some maneuver when the Enterprise was getting bombarded heavily and they're under attack. Apparently, the Enterprise is shaking, and Riker grabs like the center of the seat, like it's gonna help. But it's basically like the equivalent of like a Playboy model like grabbing the center of a seat and putting on sexy face. That's kind of what happened. And so of course, like, I try to go find the episode and look it up, and sure enough, Jonathan Frakes puts on this like really interesting face as he grabs the center of the bridge chair. He's like puts on Riker's bedroom eyes face. It's hilarious.
Young Riker, before he gained all the weight, was like...
He was like a pre-facial hair Riker.
Yeah.
So he was still like extra pretty boy Riker.
Yeah,
before...
they were really trying to play up the sex symbol. And then he's like, oh, I got Riker money, I'm going to get Riker cheeseburgers.
Yeah. Well, I think within the time frame of no beard to bearded Riker, he demonstrates... that he has the numbers to go toe-to-toe with Kirk, with the man himself.
Mm-hmm.
I think Riker's success rate with interspecies relations is, oh man, like he's like Hugh Hefner of Star Trek. And like all of the women in his life seem to be relatively cool with this, because they're all really... they're all from the future, and they've got really advanced views on relationships or something. But it always seemed really interesting. Like, he always seems to have the most complicated relationships with all of the alien women. God. Can we give it up to Commander Riker? And they didn't really have that in Voyager. And they didn't really have that in... they tried to make Dr. Bashir kind of a ladies' man in DS9, but even then, he really wasn't a ladies' man. He was he tried to be smooth, but...
No, he wasn't.
But he wasn't.
What was it? Was it... Not Dax.
He was in love with Dax.
No. Was that her name?
Jadzia Dax.
Yeah, she was kind of more like the ladies.
She was the ladies' man.
Yeah, more than anything on that one.
That's right. She had like a few like female encounters, and of course she ended up with Worf.
Yeah.
Oh man. And then what's his name? The Cardassian guy, Gul Dukat. He kills her.
Oh, he did. I forgot.
He flat out kills her. And it's like painful to watch, because he's like the most interesting character. He's like the most complicated villain. He's the most nuanced, like in the moment character. He was like the most nuanced character. He had all these layers of complexity where, he's bound.
Was he like a barber for a while?
Oh no, that was the other guy. God, what was his name? He was actually my favorite. He was a tailor.
Oh yeah, okay.
That guy's name, I can't remember his name. But he was cool because he was like part of the Obsidian Order, and he was like knew all these things that nobody's supposed to know, and his code still worked for several seasons, and then finally he crossed the wrong person, and they decided to strip him of what remained of his like shadow capabilities. And God, what was his name? He was a good character. I think DS9 was like probably actually my favorite Star Trek spinoff. I feel like they deserved a movie that they didn't really get. But I think it was like a terrible place for the Chief or Keiko or Worf's careers to go end.
Yeah.
And I know that Worf, of course, gets the salvage because he's part of the Next Generation movie series, but I feel like his character got kind of screwed getting sent out to Deep Space Nine, and then they wrote his character to stay. He deserved to have his own starship, but that's just some weird institutional racism at work in Starfleet, because
yeah, totally.
At that point they were back to being at war with Klingons, even though he'd had like an entire career, like glowing career with Picard. Like, he's definitely not a problem, and he's still treated like a problem. Fucking Federation never learns.
Yeah, I think they had to keep it so that the Federation was never perfect. And even though they thought they were perfect, they still had their issues.
The Federation... Yeah, because the Federation is always being, like, undermined by its own people. Like, internal coup or infiltration by whatever or the changelings, the founders. There's always something going on. I don't think Star Trek would be interesting if it was truly utopian.
Right.
It only
there'd be no conflict.
Yeah. It only works if like a few people could actually uphold the ideals, like the crew of the Enterprise. They're the only ones who can actually represent humanity like that, because pretty much everyone else in humanity is kind of screwed up and forging documents to get their kids on bridges of starships.
It's amazing. Oh, fuck.
In the meantime, no one's gonna watch their Hallmark special anyway, because Hallmark doesn't exist in the 24th century. Because people just...
Well, that's what I'm wondering is gonna happen with this, is like, obviously, do we think she's the only one that did this?
No. Joe Montana and his wife came forward, said that they used the service too, but they did not pay exorbitant fees, and that their kids got into schools on their own merit and stuff like that.
Of course they did.
Yeah. Joe Montana.
Not because it's Joe Montana's kid or anything.
Yeah.
But again, how much of the economy is run by people who got in these positions because they got their shit paid for?
Yep.
And that's where, to me, I think this is like the karmic retribution coming back to the American economy for all those people who paid their way through, and now it's gonna ripple. Like, this is the beginning of the ripple, I think, not the end. I think we're gonna see a bunch of people who don't want to go to jail start rolling over on other people, and that's when we're gonna start seeing the depths of this shit, how far it actually goes. And this is where what people would used to call the Illuminati, now we're seeing what it actually is. It's not the Illuminati, it's a bunch of fucking rich people just paying their way into places of power and authority so that they can then have their kids do the same shit. And it's not one group. It's just, you just need somebody to take a bribe.
Well, it's
everybody takes bribes at that point.
It's people who are able to recognize an opportunity afforded by a capitalist state, taking advantage of that opportunity because they have the means to take advantage of an opportunity. And it's not encourageable. It's kind of, it's highly questionable. It's ethically kind of bankrupt kind of behavior, and and it goes kind of counter to all of these things that are supposed to be core values of what it means to be American. You know, work hard, save your money, you know, buy a house, send your kids to college. They work hard, they can have the dream too. When really it's like, spend some extra money, get them into a place where they can meet people who can give them opportunity.
Pretty much.
So if we're just buying opportunity, I mean, that's what that the owner of the Jack Shack at Mar-a-Lago is doing in China now. She closed up her shop at the Trump golf course in Jack Shack, and now she is apparently selling access to the president in China at her local Chinese Jack Shack.
Of course. But why not?
I mean, they've already tapped all of the football owners or whatever. Now they've got to move on to the politicians, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really watch football anymore. I don't think I ever actually paid much attention to it. There was a brief period of time when I feel like the Colts were doing really well, and a buddy of mine was like, let's go watch the Colts. And we went to this game and sat in the end zone, and it was I think I don't remember anything about the game. Actually, now that I think about it, I remember.
I mean, why would you though?
I remember this really kind of nasally, loud, and drunk woman sitting next to me, eating this cup of peanuts, and it smelled like roasted peanuts and beer. And that was it. It was less memorable than going to a monster truck rally.
I mean, each individual game doesn't matter. The Super Bowls only matter until the next Super Bowl happens. You're not a player. I can't watch any sports except for martial arts, and the only reason I can watch martial arts is because you can learn from it if you know what they're doing and you know what the techniques are.
You're being observant and paying attention and looking for the lesson that they're.
And even though it's sports setting, there's still shit to be learned from it, and that's kind of where it's like, I don't watch every martial arts event, and I still fall asleep in some if they're boring. But I don't understand at this point watching something that you don't do. If you play football and watch football, okay, I get it. I still I get it at least.
For years, I would watch the Super Bowl just so I could watch the halftime show and watch the commercials. But then the halftime shows stopped being interesting. They instead of being performances, these like big grand performances, it seemed they started turning into these montages of songs that were like half performances. And then there was that whole Janet and Justin titty scandal. But apparently that happened again recently and no one cared, right? Something like that. Something's happened with God, what's his name? The Maroon 5 guy was all shirtless with all of his fresh body tattoos, and people were like, this isn't a problem, but Janet having a wardrobe malfunction is a problem.
Yes, all nipples are not equal.
They really wanted to see the Maroon 5 guys shirtless, though. That's really what it is. And he had a bunch of really clean, like, so sharp. The lines are so sharp that on a TV or on the Jumbotron from like 100 feet away, his tattoos are legible type stuff. We've got some really incredible technology now. Did you see the last the panorama that was Opportunity gave us of the Martian landscape before it went offline again?
No, I didn't look at that. I saw it posted, but I didn't.
Oh, it's all big and weird looking, because they didn't get like a a complete scan. So like there's a reduced version that's like an actual image. Our robots are so cool.
Yeah.
They just keep ticking, keep
getting
going.
to a point where it is pretty much a new species. I hesitate not to call it a new
They
species.
come back online after the dust settles and the wind blows off that layer. That stuff is so amazing to me. Anymore, I think of things like the machines in my kitchen as being like robots, because they've got timers and they communicate with me if I tell them to tell me something in a few minutes. I press a few buttons and they heat things up to a desired range. Like without the words or any kind of meaningful interface, like the only response is a couple of like beeping noises, and somehow that's enough for them to communicate with us. Computers are just really complicated robots that don't move around, that deliver us untold information at the speed of thought.
Pretty much.
Air fresheners are robots that fart regularly on timed intervals. Farting robot smells like roses. We should be so lucky.
Yeah, if everything has a cellular memory, let's hope it likes you when it learns how to talk.
God. The only machines that I'm worried would come back and be mad at me are like things like outdoor tools, like a chainsaw or a lawnmower or anything with a motor that you have to like go at like full steam to get to work, like tools, yard tools. Those are the only ones I'm afraid to be like, you bastard, you fucking drove me so fucking hard, burn me out. And then, but it's like, what? That's what they're built for. I guess it shouldn't matter. I mean, I don't get mad because the cow that the hamburger that I'm eating was made out of a cow that was probably treated poorly. It's like, that's like a level of concern that I just can't. When I start thinking about that kind of stuff, it just makes me feel bad.
I mean, that's why I eat less meat.
Yeah.
So I don't have to feel bad. Because I don't want to not think about that. Like, that's a level of absent-minded destruction that has a byproduct of basically animal slavery that we can...
I mean, I know it happens. That's the dilemma.
I mean, but that's the problem is you can let it perpetuate when you can put it out of your mind. It's much easier for it to perpetuate, and that's kind of where it is. I do the same, when they have...
like the Impossible Burger.
Well, yeah, that's a good way to get around having to kill something to eat a burger. But when you have people who smoke cigarettes in Europe, they put pictures on the carton of what your lungs look like, or what a dead body or some shit. We don't have to see the fucking animal carcass when we go to the grocery store and just get the packs of meat. So you have a ton of people who grow up buying this shit and never think about or know where it even comes from, and then it's the worst factory farms of the worst.
You imagine buying a packet of hamburger and it says Dolly 246.
I mean, it kind of should.
And then you could go look up Dolly 246 life story, and Dolly was purchased.
They made fun of that shit on Portlandia. There's a whole skit about it.
Oh God.
Where you go to the restaurant and they have like you can see all the shit about the cow you're about to eat, and at the same time, I think that's important where it is. There's
Maybe
an
we
element
need that.
we do. I think we've become so dissociated from the process. No, I mean, even hunters, it's like, I get the idea of, oh, you're hunting and you're getting in touch with it. But what is that part of the process that is really necessary to keep doing that over and over and over now that we have alternatives. Because it's like, at a certain point, like, we we've gotten to a point where something doesn't have to die in order for us to keep surviving.
So there's this
whether it's plant or
there's
animal.
a company in Russia for the longest times. They were originally made for spies, but they ended up becoming a very useful tool for photographers.
Mm-hmm.
And this company Zenit, they made basically Hasselblad knockoffs, so medium format film cameras. But they were unique in that they built these things into what looked like a gun stock that you operated the shutter from a trigger, and had this extra mount system so they could support huge lenses.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a camera, a DSLR or an SLR, that has a scope that has an articulated prism, so it's offset off to the side so you can shoot more comfortably, but you have this gun camera that shoots film instead of bullets, and you can shoot high-speed film, you can shoot high-grain film, you can shoot whatever kind of film you can find, really. And I always loved it because putting the thing together looked like it was more complex. It looks like the kind of thing that a James Bond level assassin would be assembling before they like lasered somebody.
Right.
And but really, it's a camera. It's just a camera.
Mm-hmm.
But they were so the special feature, of course, is because they were made for spies. They were whisper quiet. So you can go carry this thing out and get into position, and you're shooting a deer or a lion or whatever you're shooting, because it's film, and you dial in your settings and you pull the trigger, and voila, you just created an image of a lion. And you used a lens that allowed you to get this perfect shot and separate it from the background and make it look beautiful. And you can blow this image up to the size of a billboard because you used a piece of film that's the size of a credit card. And it's like all of these things. And that's really cool. And I'd love to have a camera system that could, a mounting solution that could adapt a digital camera to hold a long-ass lens to function like that. That would be really cool. I should probably develop that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty badass.
It's like plug in your thing and hold on to these other things, and here you go. Here's your specialized gun shooter system. Go out and shoot it
Put
up.
a laser sight on it, everything.
Yeah, get like tactical rail systems so that you can attach microphone, infrared lamp, and a laser, and GPS locator, third-party GPS locator add-ons. Thing to hold your smartphone on top of it. So next thing you know, you've got this camera gun thing with all this stuff on it, and a satellite dish.